Hey guys, welcome back. So today we'll be factoring trinomials when the leading coefficient is not 1. So let's look at this example here, 2x squared plus 5x plus 3. First thing we're going to do, we're going to multiply my 2 times my 3. So if you use this format here, we are multiplying the a times the c first. A times c, which is going to be my 2 times my 3, this is going to equal 6. This is going to be your product here, and this down here is going to be your sum. Your sum here is going to be a positive 5, and your product is going to be a positive 6. So we need two numbers when you multiply together is going to give you 6. Those same two numbers when you add or subtract needs to give you a 5. And the numbers that come to mind is going to be a positive 2 and a positive 3. If I multiply 2 times 3, this is going to give me 6, which is perfect. That's what we're looking for. And then if I add 2 plus 3, this is going to give me a positive 5, and that's perfect. That is what we're looking for. Now, I have a positive 2 and a positive 3. Now we are going to split up this middle term into my positive 2 and my positive 3 plus 5x plus 3. And remember, we are splitting up my 5x. This is going to be 2x squared plus 2x plus 3x plus 3. And remember, all I did here, I split up my 2x plus my 3x because that's going to give me 5x. Now we're going to group, so I'm going to group 2x squared plus 2x on this side. I'm going to group that. Plus, on this side, we're going to group 3x plus 3. So now let's factor the first group here. What can I factor out of this group here? I can factor out a 2x. If I factor out a 2x, I'll be left with x plus 1 inside parentheses. Now the next side, what can I factor here? I can factor out a 3. If I factor out a 3, I'll be left with x plus 1 inside parentheses. And at this point, I'm going to continue factoring here. So by looking at this step here, notice you have x plus 1 and x plus 1 here. I am going to factor that out. So I'm going to put x plus 1 here. And after you factor out your x plus 1, then you'll be left with 2x plus 3. And this is your final answer here. Let's look at 2x squared minus x minus 6. First thing we're going to do, we're going to multiply my 2 times my negative 6. This is going to be your product. And then your sum is going to be the middle term. So my product, my 2 times my negative 6 is going to be negative 12. And then my sum is going to be negative 1. So we need two numbers when you multiply together is going to give you negative 12. Those same two numbers when you add or subtract needs to give you a negative 1. And the numbers that come to mind is going to be a positive 3 and a negative 4. So if I multiply 3 times negative 4, this is going to give you a negative 12. And as you can see, this is what we're looking for right here. And then if I add 3 plus negative 4, this is going to equal a negative 1. And as you can see, this is what we're looking for right here. So the numbers again are going to be a positive 3 and a negative 4. That's going to give me the product and sum that I'm looking for. Now let's write 2x squared minus x minus 6. Now we are going to separate this negative here, this negative 1. Remember, we're going to do a positive 3 and negative 4. So I'm going to do 2x squared plus 3x minus 4x because that's going to give me my middle number, my sum, and then minus 6. I'm going to group 2x squared here plus 3x and then plus negative 4x minus 6 here. Let's look at my first group. What can I factor out of my first group? My first group here, I can factor out an x. If I factor out an x, I'll be left with 2x plus 3 inside parentheses. Plus, let's look at my second group here. My second group here, I can factor out a negative 2. If I factor out a negative 2, I'll be left with 2x plus 3. So all I did here, I factor out my negatives and just made everything inside here positive. Now, this technically is x, 2x plus 3, minus 2, and then 2x plus 3 again. Now here in this step, you can factor out a 2x plus 3, as you can see. So I'm going to come over here. So 2x plus 3 is factored out, and you'll be left with x minus 2. And this is your final answer. So let's look at the same example. So let's say you switched your negative 4x and your 3x. And let's say you did 2x squared minus 4x plus 3x and then minus 6. Let's say you wrote it like this. Remember, the middle number here is going to give you the negative 1x, which is what we have here. So now let's say we're going to group. So I'm going to group 2x squared minus 4x and then plus 3x minus 6. My first group here, I'm going to factor out a 2x and I'll be left with x minus 2. And my second group here, I'll be factoring out a 3 and I'll be left with x minus 2 as well. Now when you come here, you can factor out my x minus 2. So you're going to factor that out and then you'll be left with 2x plus 3. And as you can see, you do get the same exact answer as we just showed with the other way when I factored out the negative 1. So just remember, when you're working with your positive and negatives, just keep that in mind. I did not have to factor out when I wrote my negative 4x first, but I did have to factor out my negative 1 when I did 3x minus 4. So just make sure you know the difference between the two. Let's look at this example, 6x squared plus 11x minus 10. First thing we're going to do, we're going to multiply my 6 and my negative 10. This is going to give me my product of negative 60. And then your sum in this example is going to be 11, a positive 11. So now we need two numbers. When I multiply together is going to give me negative 60. Those same two numbers, when you add or subtract, needs to give you a positive 11. And those numbers are going to be negative 4 and a positive 15 are going to be the two numbers that we're looking for. So if you multiply negative 4 times 15, this is going to give you negative 60. If you add negative 4 plus 15, this is going to give you a positive 11. So these are the numbers that's going to help us with our product and sum when we're factoring. And now we're going to split up my 11x. So 6x squared minus 4x plus 15x minus 10. Now we're going to group. So 6x squared minus 4x. This is going to be one group. The second group here is going to be 15x minus 10. If I look at my first group, what can I factor out here? And I can factor out a 2x. If I factor out a 2x, I'll be left with 3x minus 2 inside parentheses. And then here, my second group, I can factor out a 5. If I factor a 5 out, I'll be left with 3x minus 2 as well. Now this step here, I can factor out 3x minus 2. So I'm going to write 3x minus 2. If I factor out a 3x minus 2, you'll be left with 2x plus 5. And then here you're going to put 2x plus 5. And as you can see, this is your final answer here. Let's look at 2x squared plus x plus 3. First thing, we're going to multiply my 2 times the 3. So 2 times 3. The product here is going to be 6. This is going to be 6, and then the sum is going to be a positive 1. So we need two numbers. When you multiply together is going to give you 6. Those same two numbers, when you add or subtract, needs to give you a positive 1. So some numbers that may come to mind is 1 and 6. Other is going to be the number 2 and 3. And as you can see, by looking at my 1 and my 6 and then my 2 and my 3, we do not have any numbers when I multiply is going to give me 6, and then those same two numbers have to give me 1. Because if I use 1 and 6, 1 times 6 is 6, and then if I add 1 plus 6, this is going to give me 7, so we know we cannot use these numbers. And then if I use my 2 and 3, 2 times 3 is 6, And then if I add 2 plus 3, this is going to give me 5. So as you can see, we cannot use these numbers as well. Even if you switch your 2 and 3 and turn it into negatives, so if I did -2 plus my -3, this is going to be -2 minus 3, and this is going to be a -5 again. Then if you did -2 plus 3, yes, this is going to give you a +1. But what if I did -2 times 3? This is going to give me a -6. So again, we can't use this. We're looking for a +6 and then, of course, a +1. So for this example here, this is going to be an example of a prime polynomial. Let's look at this example here. Notice here that your leading coefficient here is a negative. So if your leading term here is negative, make sure that you factor out the negative first and then continue processing. So if I factor out a -1, I'll be left with 2x squared. This is now going to be positive. My 11x is now going to be negative, and then my +6 here is now going to be -6. So now we're going to complete the same thing that we did earlier. So just keep this -1 hanging out on the side, that's fine. So now we're going to multiply 2 times -6. This is going to be your product, and your product here is going to be -12. And then your sum is going to be -11. So we need two numbers. When you multiply, is going to give you -12. Those same two numbers, when you add or subtract, needs to give you a -11. And the numbers that come to mind is going to be -12 and a +1. So if I multiply -12 times 1, this is going to give me -12, which is perfect because this is what we have here. And then if I add -12 plus 1, this is going to give me -11. Perfect. This is also what I have here for my sum. So now let's go ahead and set everything up. So my -1, remember, it's going to be on the sideline for now. And then we have 2x squared minus 11x minus 6. And remember, we are going to split up that 11x into my -12 and 1. So we have my -1 again hanging on the side. 2x squared minus 12x plus 1x minus 6. Remember, your -1 is going to be on the sideline. And then you have 2x squared minus 12x. And then here we have 1x minus 6. I'm going to bring my -1 down, and we're going to look at my first group here. What can I factor out here? I can factor out a 2x. If I factor out a 2x, I'll be left with x minus 6 here. Now let's look at my second group. As you can see, there's nothing to factor out. You do have an imaginary 1 right here in front. However, as you can see, there is nothing to factor out. So I'm just going to rewrite 1x minus 6. Now we're looking here. I can factor out an x minus 6. If you factor out an x minus 6, you'll be left with 2x plus 1. Remember, you have your imaginary 1 here. So this is going to be 2x plus 1 is what you'll be left with. And then, of course, do not forget the -1 that we've been bringing down. And this is your final answer. Let's look at this example here. We have 3x cubed minus 15x squared plus 12x. So for this example, before we do anything, notice that you do have some common terms here that you can factor out. By looking at this example, I can factor out 3x first. If I factor out 3x, I'll be left with x squared minus 5x and then plus 4. I need two numbers. When you multiply, that's going to give me a +4. Those same two numbers, when you add or subtract, needs to give me a -5. So we have our 3x already, and those two numbers are going to be -4 and -1. So if I multiply -4 times -1, this is going to give you a +4, which is what we have here. Next, if I do -4 plus -1, this is going to give you -4 minus 1, and this is going to give you a -5, which is what we have here. So the numbers that we can use to give us the product and the sum is going to be -4 and -1. So this is going to be x minus 4, and then here x minus 1. And as you can see, we cannot factor any further, so this is your final answer. Let's look at this example here. The first thing we're going to do, we're going to factor out a 2x. If I factor out a 2x, I'll be left with 3x squared plus 10x and then plus 8. Now, we're going to follow the same steps that we did earlier. We're going to multiply my 3 times the 8. This is going to be your product, and this is going to be a positive 24. And then your sum is going to be a positive 10. So we need two numbers. When you multiply together, is going to give you a positive 24. Those same two numbers, when you add or subtract, needs to give you a positive 10. And those numbers that come to mind is going to be a positive 6 and a positive 4. So if I multiply 6 times 4, this is going to give me a positive 24. Perfect, that's what we're looking for. And then if I add 6 plus 4, this is going to give me a positive 10. This is also what I'm looking for. We have a positive 24 and then a positive 10, which is perfect. So let's go ahead and rewrite. 3x squared plus 6x plus 4x and then plus 8. Now we're going to group, and don't forget, yes, you're going to continue to bring your 2x down, but let's go ahead and group first. So we have 3x squared plus 6x, and then my second group, we have 4x plus 8. Now let's look at my first group. What can I factor out here? I can factor out 3x, so I'll factor out a 3x, and I'll be left with x plus 2 inside parentheses. And then my second group here, what can I factor out? I can factor out a 4, so I'll be left with x plus 2 as well inside my parentheses. Now, just by looking at this here, I can factor out now my x plus 2, so I'll put that on the side here. And then on my left side, we have 3x plus 4. So this is going to be 3x plus 4. And then, of course, don't forget your 2x that we carried down from the top, from up here. So we brought it all the way down, and that's going to be included in my answer. And this is your final answer. Let's look at this example here, 4x squared minus 12x plus 9. First thing we're going to do, we're going to multiply my 4 times my 9 first. Remember, we're starting from here times here. This is going to be your product, and 4 times 9, this is going to be 36. And then your sum is going to be a negative 12. So we need two numbers. When you multiply, it's going to give you positive 36. Those same two numbers, when you add or subtract, needs to give you a negative 12. And the numbers that come to mind is going to be negative 6 and negative 6. So let's see. If I multiply negative 6 times negative 6, this is going to give us a positive 36. Perfect. This is what we're looking for. And then if I add negative 6 plus negative 6, this is going to be negative 6 minus 6, and this is going to turn into negative 12. And this is what we're looking for right here. So 4x squared minus 12x, and then plus 9. Now we're going to split up the middle term. Don't forget here. So we have 4x squared minus 6x minus 6x, and then plus 9. Now let's group. So we have 4x squared minus 6x here, parentheses, plus we have negative 6x and then plus 9. First group here, what can I factor out? I can factor out a 2x. If I factor 2x, I'll be left with 2x minus 3 here. And then here, my second group, I can factor out a negative 3. If I factor out a negative 3, I'll be left with 2x minus 3. And remember, because I factored out my negative, everything inside the parentheses is going to change. So as you can see, you have a positive 2x and then a negative 3 left. Now this step here, we can factor out 2x minus 3, and then you'll be left with 2x minus 3 again. And this is your final answer. Now you can also write it like 2x minus 3 squared. All right, so that is all for today, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.